All right, so today we are going to discuss chapter 9, which is focusing on labor. We've talked about food cost percentage, talked about how we can manage our food cost throughout the production cycle, or the purchasing cycle. We also have talked a little bit about beverages because a lot of the same concepts that apply to food also apply to beverages. Today we're going to wrap up with the chapter 9, which is the labor cost. Next week on Tuesday, we will focus on chapter 10. Okay. And then once we finish chapter 10, we are going to go to that project workday model for the remainder of the semester up until Thanksgiving. After Thanksgiving, we'll come back in class to do the review for the final, and then this is the final exam. Okay. So for about 5 to 6 weeks, about 5 weeks, we're going to be doing project workdays. Okay.
Excuse
And
me, Mr. Minsky.
Tanner, I need you to stop for a minute, okay? Wait until I get to a point where I'm finished talking. I may answer your question. Thank you. All right, so during those project work days, you are going to have specific recipes that are due the following Monday, okay? Or Tuesday, sorry, the following Tuesday. If, when you log into class and you have those recipes done, as soon as I take attendance, then you're good to go. Okay, you've already met the requirement for that particular week. Now, if you want to work ahead and you want to ask questions about future recipes, absolutely stay on. Okay, but what this process is going to do is I've had students where you all are adults. Okay. I can't control how you spend your time. And so if I say you have independent study for 4 weeks while you're working on the project, I'm going to assume you're working on the project. And then in the past semesters, what has happened is students come to me and they say, I don't have the project done. But yet they've had 4 weeks, an entire month outside of class to work on it. And not only that, but I've actually held class in order to answer questions about tutoring, to answer questions about specific ingredients, specific recipes. Okay. And so to alleviate that from happening, if you are not done, if you have not turned in the assignments, those recipes that are due the following week, then you are required to sit in class, whether that's physically in class or whether that is online. You are required to stay in the class time and be working on that. And then I am here and available to answer any questions as they come up. Okay. Because if you're like me, hey, my teacher says we don't have class, I'm going to go take a nap. And then your project doesn't get done. But the purpose of independent study time when we are not actually physically having class is that you should still devote that time that you normally would be in class to your assignments. Okay. It just means that there's no really any lecture or any kind of instruction. Okay. So, does anybody have any questions about that format? Tanner, do you have any questions or did I answer that question?
Actually, my question was going to be about for the finals. Are we required to come into class for the finals?
Yes, you are required to come into the class for the final exam.
So we have
I
to
have a
be
question.
on campus for that.
What did I just say?
Okay.
I mean, I don't know how that else could be interpreted other than yes, you have to be here. Sebastian, do you have a question?
Yes, for the next Tuesday or next Thursday will be our last chapter. And said if we already have, I was wondering if we already have the recipe set. Is it all of them or for that current?
Just that one for the next week. So if you look at the syllabus in Canvas, then you can see which recipes are due next. So whichever ones that are due the following week Okay, those are the ones that have to be done. And then I will take attendance and then you can log off or you can leave if you are done with those recipes. Okay. Um, if you are done with those recipes already, you still need to log in to Zoom or come in person. And so once I take attendance at the very beginning, then you can log out. Okay, so I need to track your attendance that way. Okay. Oscar, you had a question, and then Aiden. Oscar, go ahead.
I'm not sure if you already went over it, but we're gonna go over how you want the final project to be assembled.
Yes, thank you. So we will go over that on Tuesday next week. Okay, so if I end chapter 10 and say, okay, that's all we have, and I haven't gone over the final project, please remind me to go over the final project submission. There is a video on how to do it, but I'd like to do that also in person, and then you can also watch the pre-recorded video as well. Aiden,
I was gonna ask
the same question. Okay, sounds good. I'm just looking to see, Nathan, the final exam is going to be, in December. It will either be the 9th or the 11th. I don't know the exact date, but it'll be one of those two class periods. Okay. You also, I will say this as well. The week after Thanksgiving, so that's December 2nd and December 4th, we are gonna have everybody come in for that day as well. Okay, so after Thanksgiving, we will have all in-person classes, no more Zoom options. You do need to be in class in person during those days, December 2nd, December 4th, and then either December 9th or 11th. Okay, depending on what day is our final exam. Because remember, during final exam week, we only meet one day a week. We don't meet on both days. We'll just meet on one of them. Okay. All right. Let me check the chat. The project is due on the Tuesday before Thanksgiving. So that is going to be November the 25th. Okay. Catherine, good question. I will be out November 4th. And so we will not have class on November 4th, but we will have that check-in on November 6th. Okay. They'll be at a conference out of town. I might be able to jump on Zoom. I have to look at the agenda. So I might be able to jump on Zoom on November 4th, but I don't want to potentially have that messed up. So I'm just gonna say November 4th, we will not have well, I won't have any Zoom, but on November 6th, we will. Okay. Awesome. Excellent. Okay, so chapter 9, that's gonna cover some things that we've already talked about a little bit. But there'll be some other new concepts as well. So a little bit of new math, which is not a big deal. And then we're gonna go into if we have time at the end, I can ask if you have specific questions about ingredients that are giving you problems on the map or on the project, or if you have specific questions about the project after you have watched the videos. Okay. I have about 30 students in both classes. The reason why I do pre-recorded videos is so I don't have to answer the same questions 60 times. Okay, because I want to help and support you, but I also don't have necessarily the time to repeat myself over and over again, do the same thing. So that's why I put those pre-recorded videos. And then I know for some people it's helpful to hear things in a different format. So I understand that. But I want to make sure that you have watched those videos prior to asking questions. So let's jump into chapter 9. So I want you to think back way back. I think it was week 2 maybe, where we talked about the concept of food and beverage cost. plus labor cost. So food and beverage costs plus labor costs, that equals what kind of cost? What type of cost? There's a specific vocabulary terminology for this particular type of cost.
Production cost?
No, but it does start with the P. So that's good. We're on the right track.
What is this, Hangman?
You might go back to your notes for chapter 2 when we talked about the different costs. Maybe it was chapter 1, I don't know the exact chapter. We have
Purchase
controllable
cost?
costs. Say it again.
Purchase cost?
Not purchasing cost, nope. What? Not payroll.
Prime.
Prime cost. Okay, our prime cost is our food and beverage and labor cost. Okay.
Food and
the-
beverage. I thought that was for fabrication.
I'm sorry, what was that?
It says FAB, or it looks like it says FAB, so I thought that was for fabrication, like you're fabricating a dish,
No,
creating
it's,
a dish, you know.
no, it's food and beverage, F&B. F&B,
Okay.
that's an industry terminology. F&B is how we shorten food and beverage.
Okay, it just looks kind of like FAB.
Food and beverage.
The plus sign.
There we go.
All right, so food and beverage is the most controllable cost, as well as our labor. And we're going to talk about labor today. We're going to talk about, sorry, I just need a moment, guys. Excuse me for one moment.
Scared of.
All right, so we are going to talk about labor. And one thing I think is really important to talk about when we're discussing labor, we mentioned this at the beginning of the semester, how labor is a semi-variable cost. Okay, remember variable costs change in direct proportion with the level of business. Fixed costs do not. It doesn't matter how many guests come in, we're going to pay our salaries the same. We're going to pay our rent the same. Okay. But those variable costs that move up and down, obviously, if we don't have a lot of customers, then our labor needs to be smaller because our wages, we should send people home when we don't have the volume of business to match. Okay. Or if we are really busy, then our labor might be exceeding what our budget is. But if I also have the sales to justify why I spent more money on labor, then it's okay, right? Because if my wages are 10% higher than I budgeted, but my sales are 20% higher than what I budgeted, then that's a good thing because I can justify I was busier. So that means I had to have more people stay after time, or I had to have more overtime in order to accommodate for that. Okay. So we have wages and salaries. Those are the things that most people associate with labor. Okay. The two things that people don't often associate with labor is taxes and benefits. Right. And so what are some examples of benefits that your employer might provide for you?
Medical and dental.
Insurance, okay.
Dental.
Good.
Dental.
Medical, dental. Sorry, say that again, Tanner.
Dental.
Dental, yeah. So those different insurance types, right? They either may cover it 100% for you, or they may pay a certain amount, right? Well, if I pay let's say I pay somebody, I don't know, somebody's medical benefits, and that's $300 a month. Well, that's $150 per paycheck that I'm paying. If I have 50 employees, that's a lot of money. It adds up. Those benefits add up. Okay. What other benefits might employers offer besides insurance?
PTO.
Prescription.
Maternity leave.
Paid time off or
Maternity leave.
maternity leave, okay? So those types of things, those paid time off. Now, maternity leave might be a little bit different. I'm not 100% sure about labor laws like that. I feel like maternity leave often is without pay, but there's the security of having that job there when you return. So that necessarily maybe that might cost the employer a little bit because they may have to hire somebody or have more hours or other people to cover those hours that you're not available while you're on maternity leave. Because that work still needs to get done. But maternity leave and paternity leave oftentimes is more along the lines of Family Medical Leave Act that allows you to basically secure your job and have that confidence that your job will still be there after this designated leave time. But that paid time off, if somebody is sick and I'm offering paid time off, or if I'm offering sick leave is different from paid time off. So sick leave, if I'm sick and I have an X number, let's say I have 40 hours of sick leave and I get sick and I was supposed to work these 4 hours, well, I'm going to use sick leave for that time. And so up to that 40 hours, you're going to pay me for that sick leave, even though I didn't actually work, and just deduct those hours from that bank of hours. Same thing with paid time off, depending on the structure of that. So oftentimes with paid time off, example, for me as a faculty member at St. Philip's, I get 16 hours. That's it. Okay. And I say that's it, but I mean, I don't mean it like in a derogatory way. I'm just saying I get 16 hours of paid time off of personal leave that I can use whenever I need to. Okay. If it's a staff person that's getting paid hourly versus a salary, like a full-time salary position, then they get X number of hours every time they have a paycheck. And so they can build up that bank. It's a little bit different. And so they also work year round, 12 months, whereas faculty, we typically have 3 months off in the summertime. And so our salaries and our contracts are slightly different. So it kind of just depends on the position. Any other benefits?
Housing.
Okay, maybe they offer some kind of stipend for housing. Good. What else?
I know some jobs offer like scholarships.
Yeah, so tuition reimbursement is a
Yeah.
great opportunity.
What about like
Hold on one
the
second.
food?
Let
Sorry.
me finish this thought, okay? But that tuition reimbursement is a great opportunity to develop your team, encourage them to go and get education, and then in return, you're helping pay for that college, and then in return, they're going to bring that knowledge back and invest it back into the organization. All right, what was that? Sorry, go ahead.
What about their like food meals? Like sometimes they offer like they pay your food benefits.
Employee meal.
Yeah, they offer
Yeah.
employee meals. That's a great example of benefit. It still costs me the money of those
Mhm.
ingredients to make that food. And so that would be part of a labor benefit if you're offering complimentary food, if you are offering discounted food, right? So an employee meal, maybe an employee pays half price. Like when I was at Chester's Hamburgers, I could
Yes.
order whatever I wanted for my 15-minute break, but I would only pay half price for that. Okay. So by paying half price, chances are at least they're going to cover the food cost of that food. So, and then taxes. So taxes is another part of labor and labor costs that I don't think a lot of people think about when it comes from an employer's perspective. Okay. So if you look at your FICA taxes, look at your paycheck, right? You have the FICA taxes, federal income taxes. That is only half of your tax liability. Your employer pays the other half of that. So whatever dollar amount is in that FICA box on your paycheck, that's what you're paying, but your employer is also paying the other half of that. So think about the taxes that will go up, or how the taxes impact labor. Okay.
I did forget another one.
Also have unemployment taxes as well. And so if somebody were to claim into unemployment, the unemployment is almost like an insurance type, an insurance policy. The employers pay into unemployment insurance every single month. And then if somebody were to have an unemployment claim, that's the money they pull out from to pay all that unemployment while that other person is looking for their job. And so those taxes are really important things, a really important part of labor. Catherine, go ahead. Retirement benefits, absolutely. I see that your note in the chat. Thank you for
401k.
typing that. Your 401k, oftentimes that matching can be either a percentage or it can be a flat amount that they will invest into your retirement. So as salaries go up, as hourly wages go up, when you have to pay a percentage of taxes on that, then that also increases your labor costs, your labor expenses. Okay. So one of the most recent legislations that passed is a new tax reform. It passed in July at the federal level, so your federal taxes. And two of the points of interest on that tax bill, I recently went to a webinar on this particular tax bill, and two of the points of interest that affect especially hospitality is the no tax on tips and the no tax on overtime. And so a lot of companies, there's a couple different ways that they would actually pay out their employees tips. Okay, so for example, when I worked at Cheesecake Factory, when I clocked out at night after my shift, or when I clocked out after my shift was over, as a server, a little box would pop up and it said, "How much did you make in tips today?" Okay, and so I would type in the amount of tips that I had. Well, that goes into consideration of how much taxes I have to pay. But then now we know that the other half of my taxes, that FICA, is paid for by the employer as well. So if I, as an employee, don't have to pay taxes on those tips up to $25,000, okay, so like almost like $2,000 a month. If I don't have to pay taxes on those tips, then that means my employer also doesn't have to pay those taxes, the other half of that tax liability. Some employers actually require that the taxes be paid out on the paycheck. And so in that regard, you typically would have a higher tax liability for that purposes. And so the other part is the no tax on overtime. And this was something that was really interesting that I found out was the no tax on overtime. If somebody gets overtime, what's usually the factor that they have to pay? The employer has to pay. Time and a half, right? And so with that, if let's say someone's making $10 an hour, and then they work overtime over 40 hours, then they're gonna get paid $15 an hour for that hour for the same work because they're working over 40 hours a week. Okay. The no tax on overtime only applies to that half, to that $5 of that $15. So you still pay the taxes on the first $10, that's your normal hourly wage. And then you're not going to pay taxes on that extra $5 or that extra half, whatever that half is. So that's, I thought was interesting because when I hear no tax on overtime, I think, oh, well, that's great. I'm going to work overtime and I won't get taxed on that $15 an hour. When in reality, it's just the $5. But again, that's up to a certain dollar amount. And I can't remember, but I want to say it was $30,000 a year. Okay. But if somebody is working that overtime, that's also going to help reduce their taxes that they have to pay. But it also reduces the employer's taxes that they have to pay. And taxes are typically a percentage based on your income. And there's a certain like tax liability for different brackets depending on how much you earn. And so the other thing I think that's really important to note, Not that I have one belief one way or the other, because I can see pros and cons from both perspectives. But there's a huge talk about minimum wage is $7.25, right? And there's always a talk about making minimum wage $15 an hour, or making minimum wage $20 an hour, or even up to $25 an hour. Okay, and that's wonderful. And that would be fantastic as far as wages. But if we add that, think about that from a business perspective. If someone is making $25 an hour, okay, whereas before the minimum wage was $7.25, okay, that's going to be 17, that's $17 more per hour. How do you think that business is going to adjust to cover the cost of that extra $17 per hour? They might buy cheaper ingredients, which then, if they buy cheaper ingredients and that affects the quality, then we go back to chapter 4 where we talk about that price value relationship, and people may
They
not
gotta
want
raise
to
the
pay that
prices.
price
They gotta
because
increase the prices.
they have to increase their prices. So that $15 hamburger is now probably going to be $20, $25 for the hamburger. And so it's sometimes it's really easy and simple to say, this is my solution, I'm going to do this. But then think about it from a business owner's perspective. How are we going to implement that? And what impact is that also going to have? Okay. We want to do the best that we can for our associates. Because if we treat our associates well, then they will treat our guests well. And then our guests will come back. Okay. If we don't treat our associates well, they're going to go find a job somewhere else. Okay. There are plenty of hospitality jobs. And so oftentimes you'll see when a new restaurant opens, there's a big mix up and shift of the workforce because they need to take some people from current restaurants. And so it's really important, and we're going to talk about that employee turnover at the end of this chapter today. Jasmine, you make a comment about having less workers. Okay, yeah, so if I've got to increase my hourly rate, then maybe I'm going to have less workers because I need to keep my labor dollars, my labor budget. I may implement one of my favorite things, and I say favorite with a very, very thick amount of sarcasm, is ordering kiosks. Right? Going into a fast food restaurant and there's a kiosk right there. Now, some people may love it because they don't want to talk to somebody. Okay. But there has literally been times where I am placing an order on a kiosk and there's a cashier doing nothing. Right? Or if depending, and most of them now have a payment processing, but they don't have a way to take cash. They only have a way to take credit cards. Right? And so I go through the whole process. I put my order in, I make all my modifications, right? And then I was like, I want to pay cash. And it says, go to the counter and pay cash. Like, why can't I just tell someone what my order is? And then I can pay cash, right? Yeah, go ahead, Oscar.
Yeah. Whether in Colorado, like I stayed at a hotel, like I made a reservation and I got an email like whenever you're there, just text this number and they'll send you the key. Like there is no like front desk, nothing. They just it was all like online. And if you needed housekeeping, you just text them and then someone will come and
Like a ghost hotel?
Interesting. Which hotel was that?
I forgot what it was.
Remember where it was?
It was close to Pagosa Springs.
Okay.
I can probably find the name of it. But yeah, it was just all
Interesting.
all-
Yeah,
Makes me
sounds
think of
pretty
those
weird.
ghost kitchens.
yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah. Did you see all the flooding that's going on in Pagosa?
It's crazy.
Oh my gosh.
It's crazy. I was just there.
Yeah. Nelly, I'm just going to read your comment real quick. The whole cycle of labor adjusts based on the change. Yeah, other cycle is less job opportunities, decrease of food cost budget. Absolutely. So it has an impact on a variety of different areas. All right. So we do want to track different productivity Okay. And one of the ways that we track our productivity is how many guests can we serve per labor dollar. So for every $1 I spend in labor, how many guests do I serve? Okay. And so to do that, what does this word per represent?
Divide.
The word per represents divide. So cost per labor dollar, sorry, covers per labor dollar. So our covers per labor dollar, so we have our covers, the word per, and then we just cross it out because that's a division sign. Okay. So I had in this scenario 2,500 guests during this particular period of time, and I spent $18,000 on my labor. So if I do 2,500 divided by 18,000, what do I get?
0.138.
Okay, so 0.138. Okay. Now, that seems kind of weird to think about, right? I serve 0.138 of a person for every labor dollar that I spend. Okay. My budget, my goal is 0.15. Okay. So is 0.13 higher or lower than my budget of 0.15? It's lower. That means we did not meet our goal. Okay. We did not meet our goal. And let me show you mathematically what that means. So if my goal is 0.15, okay, if we take the 2,500 people, that's the number of guests that we served, we divide by 0.15, and what is our answer?
16,666 points.
Okay, so $16,666.67. Okay. So if I were to meet my budget of 0.15 guests per labor dollar, okay, if I were to meet my goal and serve 2,500 people, that means I should have spent $16,600 on labor. But in reality, I spent 18,000. So how much more on labor did I spend?
A little bit more than
13.
Yeah, a little bit more than $3,000, right? Or $2,000. Sorry, a little over 1,300, sorry. So a little over $1,300 more on labor than I should have spent. That means I spent more money on labor. Okay. Do we see where that goes? How we got those numbers? Okay, let's do another example. We served 200 guests and we spent $950 on this. So cost is our covers per labor dollar. So 0.21. We served, for every labor dollar, we served 0.21 of a person. Did we meet our goal? No, because 2.1 is lower than 2.5. It's smaller than 2.5. Okay, so let's check our math again. If I spent just kidding. If I served 200 people and I divide by my goal of 0.25, what is 200 divided by 0.25? $800. So I should have spent 800, but in reality, I spent $950. That's an extra $150. Okay? And it may not be hard to get an extra $150. How many of you have ever been in a situation where your boss is like, hurry up and clock out? Why are they saying hurry up and clock out?
Because it costs them money.
Because you're costing them money, right? You're supposed to clock out at 11 and it's 11:15. Hurry up and clock out. You're done for the day. Okay? They're not trying to be rude. They're not trying to be mean. They're just saying, okay, in most places, they either pay you down to like your actual time, but I know some places pay you on the quarter hour. And so if you clock out at 11:15, you're going to get paid for that extra 0.25 of an hour. Even though you're scheduled to be off at 11, they're going to pay you for that extra 0.15 or 0.25 an hour, but the manager may have to go back and do adjustments. Well, that takes time on the manager's part, and they don't have time to do all those adjustments. So oftentimes they're riding you to get off the clock because they want to control their dollars. Their labor is only $800, and they're tracking that down to the penny to make sure that they don't go over their labor dollars. Okay. So Naila, your question, in order to get the labor dollar goal, they should have spent, yes, they should have spent $800. In reality, they spent $950. So that means they went over their labor budget by $150. Okay. Let's do one more example. 7,500 guests divided by 65,000 is 0.11. Okay. Did we meet our goal? Yes, we exceeded our goal. Because why? 0.11 is more than 0.1. Okay, it's just a little bit more, but it's more, it's higher. So we did meet our goal. Okay, so let's check our math and see what we did financially, dollar amount wise. If I do 7,500 guests and I divide by 0.1, I'm going to get $75,000. Okay, so my budget was $75,000. My target, I actually only spent $65,000. I saved $10,000 in labor costs. Okay. And remember, labor is not just wages and salary. Labor also includes benefits and also includes taxes. So if I can keep those wages as low as possible, okay. We also want to keep the same concept though. Remember how we talked about when we talked about recipes, we don't want to change the recipe to a cheap ingredient. We don't want to try to lower our costs so low that we sacrifice quality. Okay? We want to make sure when it comes to labor that we're staffed appropriately. Okay? We want to make sure that if we do have people on the schedule, that they can actually that we have enough people to manage the amount of people that are coming in, the number of guests that are coming in. Okay, we don't want to overstaff because that's where we lose money in labor, but we also don't want to understaff because then that could sacrifice our quality. Maybe we'll have long ticket times in the kitchen if we're understaffed in the kitchen. Maybe our servers will have more tables than necessary, and so then the guest service will also suffer. So there's a lot of different variables you have to juggle. Any questions about guests served per labor dollar? Anytime, remember, you see that word per, it represents a division line. Okay, so no matter what, if I give you numbers and I ask for the guests served per labor dollar, then you should be able to find that out because the word, you know that the word per is the division symbol. All right, so we can't control how many guests come in our restaurant, right? I may budget to have 2,500 guests, but I can't guarantee I'm going to get 2,500 guests. Okay, so what can I do to increase my productivity?
Side work.
Okay, give people side work. Absolutely. Okay, who does not know what side work is?
That'd be like being productive. You have nothing to do.
If you got time to lean,
Time to clean.
you've got time to clean, okay? That side work, okay, maybe you're gonna be over here rolling silverware to get ready for the next shift, okay? Or maybe you're gonna be over here and you're gonna be restocking sugar caddies. Okay, you've got something to do. You're not just sitting there doing nothing. We might have side work that we're doing. We might have special projects. Okay. Maybe we close down half of our dining room and we pull the cushions out of the benches and we do a deep clean with like a hot soapy rag or something to get all those cracks and things that we normally don't have a chance to do every single time. But maybe our business is so slow that now I want to keep my employees employed. I want to give them hourly wages, but I also need some productivity out of them, okay, as well. And should always be busy. Yep. So do some training. Yeah, maybe maybe some different trainings that we can offer
Cross training.
to encourage our servers or our guests or maybe even our cooks to be able to do to provide better service. Okay. So there's different opportunities that we can do while it's slow. But if we have all those done and it's still slow, what are we gonna do?
Send
Send
people.
people home. Okay. We're gonna send people home. We're gonna cut people. Okay. And so as a server, typically when we cut people, there's a specific floor plan of the dining room. And then that floor plan is divided by certain sections. Okay. And then if we only have 3 people, well, now this floor plan of 5 is going to go down to 3, and it's going to identify whose tables belong to who. That way, there is no miscommunication of, oh, I don't know, I forgot, I don't know whose table that is. I don't know who's going to serve those guests. Whoever's in section 1, 2, and 3, you're staying on. And so whoever's in section 4 and 5, do your side work and clock out. Okay. So we can have that ability to do that. One of the best things as far as employees is concerned, you as an individual, is if you are cross-trained, let's say you're in the kitchen and you know fry, grill, saute, and salad and the cold side. Well, when they're going to get cut down to 2 people, you think they're going to keep the person that only knows one station? No, they're going to keep the people that have been cross-trained into other stations. And so that's a really good opportunity for you to gain more hours because if you have that ability to do that while it's slow, then they're going to say, okay, I can have this one person here and they can cover this because I can trust them to do that. I don't have to pay 2 people to do this. Okay. Now, that being said, you as future business owners, you also don't want to burn out your staff. Okay. So just because you can do something with one person doesn't mean you should always do that with one person. Okay. So if we know that it's going to be somewhat busy, bring those 2 people in or 3 people in. Okay. And then if we know it's relatively going to be slow, we'll bring just one person in. And to do that, we can look at our master schedules. Okay. To manage that effectively, we can manage that using our master schedule. So looking at this list right here, how many servers do we have? 4. We have 4 servers, okay? Now, if I look right here at 12 o'clock, at 1 o'clock, 90 people, that's my max. That's gonna be my busiest that I have, okay? If I take 80 divided by 4, what do I get? 20. Okay. That means my servers, their expectation is 20 guests per hour. Their productivity, they should be able to take care of 20 guests in an hour. Okay. Now, if I look here at 10 o'clock, I only have 15 people. I don't need to bring in these 3 servers because I have nothing for them to do. Because one person should be able to handle 20 guests in that first hour. Okay. Now, what happens if all of a sudden we get a big rush and now we have 40 people in that first hour? what happens?
Come on.
Be like, hey, good luck. You got 40 people. No, the
The
manager should
managers
step
help
in.
out.
Yeah, managers help out. Okay, step in. Let me help you out for a little bit. Maybe I can take drink orders, and I can help fulfill those drink orders so that you can focus on what you got to do. Right. So that's a rarity. Okay. Or if I know somebody is going to come in at 11 and it's 10:15 and we're crazy busy, maybe I call that person, one of those people from 11. Hey, is it possible you could get here at 10:45 or maybe even 10:30? Okay, if they live close by. And then that's great. Okay, yeah, bring me in early and I'll get an extra half an hour of work. You can help me out, and they also get an extra half hour. Jasmine, I see your hand is up. What question do you
Yes,
have?
Mr. Umensky, why is it 80 divided by 4 instead of the 90?
So I'm gonna talk about that in just a second.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's a good question. So so my productivity is 20 guests per hour. Okay. Now, if we look right here at 11, why did we bring in all 4 people? I don't have 80 people, but I have close enough to 80 people, right? And so, Jasmine, to answer your question, at 90 people at 1 o'clock, that's only 10 more people. Do I think I have enough to bring in an entirely new server? Or can I give each of my servers 3 people, and that will basically cover those 10 extra people? So for that 1 hour of work, can my servers manage 23 people for that 1 hour? Okay. If my answer is yes, great. That's awesome. Okay. If my answer is no, well, let me bring in a new person. Okay. But with that being said, we do staggered starting time and we also do staggered ending time. And so if I take these 2 hours, right? So my servers C and D, they're just going to come in for 3 hours, work the busy time, and then head out. Okay. Now, if I wanted to, server A has how many hours? 5 hours, right? So I could maybe take this server A and move them down to here. And so that way 3 of my servers have 4 hours, right? Server A comes in an hour early, they get to go home an hour early. And then my servers B and C, they stay at the end to help with cleanup or shifting to the next shift, the next meal period. Server D, maybe someone who's a student or maybe a parent who needs to come in late because they got to drop their kids off at school, but they also need to go home early to make sure that they're home by the time that their kids come home from school, right? So we have a flexibility. There's not always that you have to work 40 hours a week in the industry. Sometimes people that need flexible hours, we're able to work with them in this regard, okay? But if I did not know anything about master schedules, and I had not taken Mr. Minsky's cost control class, and I open up a restaurant, and I just bring all 4 of my servers in, okay? That's 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Do we all agree? That's 5 hours of wasted time by not staggering the start and finish. So if I do 5 hours, and let's say I pay my people $15 an hour. 5 times 15 is what? 75. That's an extra $75 per day of wasted time, wasted labor dollars. And if I multiply that by 360 days out of the year,
It's 27,000.
$27,000.
And that's just wages, not including any of the taxes.
That's just the wages. That's not including taxes or benefits or anything. That's just the dollar amount in wages. Okay. So understanding how I can, okay, I may go into a place and, okay, yeah, this place has always done their schedule like this. Well, maybe you might consider only bringing 1 person in to start. And then once we actually open to the public, then maybe I bring people in, okay? Because maybe 1 person could handle this. When I was at Chester's Hamburgers for the morning crew, there was really only 4 people that came in at opening time or at 9 o'clock in the morning. And And those were the two preps, the grill person, and the kitchen person. And so the kitchen person had to cut the potatoes for the day for the fries. They also had to make sure things were clean and that everything was good to go. The preps, one prep was cutting the onions and the lettuce and the tomatoes. The other prep was managing the pickle buckets and the onions. And then the grill person was making the bacon for the morning, for the lunch rush. And then we open at 11, so at 10:30, here comes the cashier. There's no reason for a cashier to be there at 9 o'clock because all they have to do is turn on the soda machine and fill the ice bin. That's it. Okay. The manager has put the drawer in there. The manager's done all that work. So that cashier person doesn't have to be there. So by scheduling and staggering people, it allows us to control our labor budget a little bit better. Okay. Yeah.
Is that 27,000 just for the A server or
That's just those 5 hours.
okay,
So if I-
just for that
yeah.
one server?
No, it's for the entire group. Right? So this is right now, I'm only paying my servers 15 hours worth of work.
Oh, okay.
But if I paid them 20 hours because I brought them all in, that's the scenario that I was talking about. So if I just brought them all in, regardless of whether I had the amount of work for them to be productive,
Mhm.
that's what the $27,000 represents.
Okay.
This area right here in red. That's $27,000 worth of labor wages.
Okay.
Yeah. It adds up. And that's just the servers. What about the hosts and hostess? What about the bussers? What about the kitchen staff?
The GM.
Okay. All of that. This is primarily the labor, the wages part, right? Salaries is a whole other thing. All right. So we talk about turnover. What is turnover? We talked about inventory turnover. So now we're talking about employee turnover. What does that mean?
The amount of employees that come in.
That leave?
The amount of employees that leave, and then we have to rehire them or rehire new employees. Okay.
How quickly one position is filled and replaced?
Say it one more time.
How quickly one position is filled and replaced?
Exactly. So how many times have we replaced somebody that has left? Exactly. That position is filled. So the way we calculate our turnover percentage, we take the total number of employees that were hired during a particular period of time, and we divide by the number of employees that are actually needed. Like, let's say we are fully staffed. Okay. That's the number of employees we're going to divide by. And so in this case, the number of employees that to be fully staffed, we consider is at 75. During this particular time period, we hired 115 people. So if I do 115 divided by 75, I get 1.533. I move that decimal place over, and that's 153.3%. Okay, so it takes me 75 people to run my restaurant. During this time period, I hired 115 people. That means I had 153% turnover rate. Okay. So let's just do it from the basics of the numbers of people. So 115 minus 75 is 40 people. That means I had 40 people leave and I had to rehire those 40 people. Okay. So 153% over my turnover rate. It's a lot of money. That's a lot of turnover. So if we want to calculate how much it actually cost us in employee training to do that, we take that 153.3%. We're going to multiply it by that 75, which comes out to about basically the 115 employees. If we take, because of the repeating decimals, comes out to 114.975. So it's essentially 115 employees. times 250 people or $250 per person. That means during this time period, I spent $28,750 on training. I spent $28,750 on training new people. It's a lot of money. Yeah.
That's not gonna include. know that gets
Well, so yeah, so the turnover rate itself is probably not going to include cross training, right? But cross training will maybe not be $250 per new hire. It may be a little bit less because they may not have the amount of time that's needed. Like maybe a new hire is gonna get 2 full weeks. If you're cross training, maybe you get like 1 week of training. But when you're cross training, you still are using some labor dollars because you have two people doing the job of one person because someone has to train that person. And then typically the way it works, I'm not sure, y'all can tell me in the back of the house, but the front of the house, typically how it works is as a server, I do my classroom training. So I learn the menu, I learn the computer system, I do all that stuff. And then once I do that, then I go to the floor. Okay. And so when I'm on the floor, the first day, maybe the first 1 or 2 days, I'm just shadowing. So I'm just watching what my trainer is doing. And then maybe 2 or 3 days after that, I'm working side by side with my trainer. And then maybe for the last day or two, they are shadowing and I'm doing the job and they're just observing to make sure I'm doing the right job. So that entire time, we're paying two people to do one position. So that increases our labor dollars. Jasmine, great question about rehires. So maybe the cost to rehire somebody, maybe they left on good terms, but for whatever reason they just had to leave. And if they came back and you want to rehire them, then potentially obviously their training would be less, but they would still be counted as someone who left and someone who came back.
And they still have to do classroom training.
It depends on how long they've been gone. It depends on a lot of different factors, but that would be something that would probably be done on an individual basis. Like let's say they left and then you came back and now you have a brand new computer system. Yeah, they're probably going to need some time to get used to that system. But if they come back and everything's pretty much the same, you might have like 1 or 2 days, maybe just like a couple menu items changed. Well, then maybe just give them a couple of days to train just to kind of recalibrate and have that support of somebody on the staff. And then from there, they can go on their own. Good questions. So now, what if we reduce our turnover? Okay. What if we reduce our turnover? So if we go from 153.3 to 93.3%, what is the difference? What is the percentage difference of 153.3 and 93? 60%. Okay. So I may have a goal as a manager to reduce my turnover rate by 60%. That's a pretty ambitious goal. So now if I can do that, I got the 0.60, because remember, we're going to move that decimal place over 2 spots. So 0.60 times the 75 employees times the $250, we could save $11,250 is what we could save if we were to reduce our turnover rate from 153 to 93.
And that's 60%.
60%, yep. Right, we just subtracted 153 minus 93 is 60. And so we converted it back to a decimal. $11,250. If we could reduce our cost and reduce our turnover. Oftentimes in management classes, you'll learn that most often people quit people before they quit the job. Okay. What does that mean? People quit people.
A lot of like bad leadership could be the reason that these employees are.
Okay, so bad leadership, maybe bad coworkers,
Environment.
the environment. Okay,
Reliable training.
if there's not enough training or not, if that's not ample enough, or if it's poor training, people aren't prepared to do their jobs, that leads to frustration, and then they'll leave and go find a job somewhere else. Okay? And so I personally have always had the mantra of I would hate to be the person that would be the reason that somebody would leave a job. Okay. And so I have always approached any kind of leadership position that I've been in is how would I want to be? How would I want my leadership to work with me? And that's how I'm going to work with people that are working with me. That's how I'm going to support those individuals. $11,000. That's almost $12,000. That's almost $1,000 a month. Okay. Almost $1,000 a month. So, what are some incentives or different ways that you think we could better spend that 11,000 to retain our employees versus having them leave and go somewhere else?
Sales.
Bonuses, okay, good.
Sales competitions.
Having some sales competitions. Okay, can you give me an example?
So we had an LBW competition the last week, so line liquor, beer, and wine, and they just wanted something above a certain percentage. And it was just basically whichever server had the highest LBW and minus the bartenders, because it's going to be higher naturally, they would get, I think, a gift card is what we were doing.
Okay, so that encouraged you then to try to sell liquor, beer, and wine.
We have $10 take homes. Every time we sell one, they punch a hole on their card, and then every card is a free meal.
Okay, so for the guests.
Yeah.
Okay, awesome. And where do you work?
Out.
Outback. Okay,
Yeah,
cool.
So the cards are for us, not for the guests.
Oh, they're for you?
Everyone that the server sells, they punch a hole on the card, and then I think it's like 10 bowls that you sell is equal to one free meal.
Oh, the bowl is like a mixed drink?
The
Or
bowl is it's kind of like the Olive Garden take home meals.
oh,
So
okay.
we started doing that, but they don't, it's like not really advertised. So they're pushing, trying to advertise and sell them so that we can keep them.
Ah, gotcha. Okay, I see what you're saying. So that's like is it the take home and reheat type?
Yeah.
Or okay, yeah. So every time you sell one, you get a punch on a card. And then what happens when you get 10 punches?
You get a free meal.
You get a free meal. I mean, that's incentive, right? So you're driving sales for those particular items. And then you said something about the liquor, beer, and wine. Whoever has the highest, you mean like the highest percentage of sales? Okay, so that might encourage you to upsell. So instead of ordering a margarita, maybe you can upsell them to do a top shelf margarita. Or at Fridays, they were called the ultimate margaritas.
Extra shot.
Or add an extra shot while serving responsibly. Okay, so that's a great competition. You're increasing sales, you're motivating people, and then rather than spending that $11,000 to hire somebody new, I can have some of these incentive programs because if my turnover is 153%, then I'm going to spend this $11,000 regardless. But if I can decrease it by keeping my associates happy and engaged, then I can spend that money on them, right? Now, it might be hard to do as a place like Outback because you're a corporate company, right? But you might, if you're a small independent restaurant, you may say, you know what? Aren't we focused on Italian restaurants? Let's say we're an Italian food restaurant. We're going to close for this day, and I'm going to post an announcement on our social media that says we are closed for this day for staff development. And I'm going to take everybody to Italy for the day. That's kind of a little excessive, right? Or maybe there's like a really high-end restaurant that provides exceptional service, that they're known for exceptional service. Well, if your servers have never eaten in an environment like that, how do they know how to serve? And so, you know what? We're going to take everybody out to this restaurant. Or, you know what? Take the day off and we're going to do X, Y, and Z. Okay. For $11,000, I can take my entire staff to Andretti's. You can bring your family, and everyone gets a game card. Everybody can do go-karting. They can go play laser tag. We're going to close the restaurant. right? I'd rather spend that $11,000 on you than hiring somebody else. Okay. We could also do incentives where people can do referrals, right? So if you refer somebody to come work for us and they make it past their 90 days, then either you and that employee, or maybe just you, gets a bonus or some kind of incentive. Okay. Why do you think that has been proven to be an effective method of recruiting quality staff?
I feel like a lot of these people that are good employees, when they reach out to other people, hey, my job's hiring and stuff, they as well are going to look for good employees to, one, help their job out, and two, make their job a little bit more easier and actually more funner in a way.
Yeah.
That somebody that they know is there as well.
Exactly.
Makes them want to be there.
When I work, sorry, go ahead, Oscar.
Well, it's like whenever our managers ask to like, if you know someone that needs a job or something, I would tell them like I know someone, but then they would tell me like, do they work like me? No, sorry. They always wanted to make sure that the person I was gonna like recommend have the same like
Mindset.
Yeah.
pretty much.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
same work ethic. And that usually is the case because typically, if there's an incentive for you, then you're going to recommend somebody that's going to make it past that 90 days. We don't want to spend $250 to train somebody and then they're gone the next week. Okay. And so oftentimes with those referrals is when we allow people to come in and provide that opportunity for us to provide good quality employees. When I was at Chester's, I started out, my sister worked there, so she got me the job. I was 16 years old. I worked all through high school, and then I was like, hey, my friends need a job too. So then it was fun to work with my friends, and we had a great time and we worked really well together. But so labor is really important, and we really need to figure out a way that we can control that because it usually is the most expensive. It's usually the highest percentage of our labor of our costs. Okay. Wow, it's 3:15. Where did today go? Jasmine, yes, with that extra money, we could replace old equipment that then maybe our employees make their job easier. Okay, good. All right, so I think that I know Tanner, you had a question, and Catherine also had a question. I'm gonna log off of the Zoom link. I'm gonna go to my office, and I need you to log into my office
Actually-
hours Zoom link, which is also on the homepage. Okay, so
Actually, Mr. Minsky, I think I'm good.
okay, sounds great. I will be on my office hours Zoom, so if you need to log in, just go ahead and do that. I will see everyone on Tuesday. We'll cover chapter 10. Thank you so much.
Mr. Minsky,
See you
Another thing we could
Tuesday.
use that money for
did
was
you
like
count me
new
present?
uniforms.
Alexa, go ahead. What was that?
Sorry, did you count me present? I know I came in a little later.
I am not taking attendance. Just make sure you write your name in the chat. Type your name in the chat, and I'll go back to the chat to double check.
Okay. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you so much.